The life and crimes of David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, have raised countless questions about the nature of evil, the psychology of serial killers, and the complexity of criminal behavior. Over the years, psychologists and criminologists have tried to understand what drove Berkowitz to commit such horrific acts. Was he truly a victim of mental illness, as he claimed, or was he simply a man who chose violence for his own reasons? In this chapter, we will delve into the psychological aspects of Berkowitz's case. We will explore the theories surrounding his behavior, his mental state at the time of the killings, and the questions about his true motivations. Was Berkowitz's belief that he was controlled by a demon dog a symptom of severe mental illness, or was it an elaborate excuse designed to avoid taking full responsibility for his actions? And seeks to answer the key questions left by Berkowitz's case. How has his story shaped our understanding of crime and punishment? What does it teach us about the complexities of the human psyche? And what lessons can we draw from the son of Sam case as we continue to explore the darker corners of human behavior? To understand Berkowitz's psychological state, we must first examine his early life. Born Richard David Falco to a young woman named Betty Broder, Berkowitz was given up for adoption shortly after birth. His adoptive parents, Harry and Pearl Berkowitz, raised him in a relatively stable home, but Berkowitz struggled with feelings of alienation, particularly during his teenage years. Psychologists have suggested that Berkowitz's early life may have contributed to his later actions. He was bullied as a child and often felt disconnected from those around him. While he did not exhibit violent tendencies during his childhood, the emotional isolation he experienced could have been a precursor to the extreme behaviors he later displayed. It is important to consider whether these early experiences, combined with his adoption and sense of abandonment, played a role in shaping his psyche. Berkowitz's relationships with women were also a source of stress for him throughout his life. He struggled with feelings of inadequacy and had difficulty forming meaningful connections. These struggles were later exacerbated by his time in the military, where he continued to feel isolated and disconnected from others. These factors likely played a role in his eventual descent into violent behavior. In the years following his arrest, Berkowitz claimed that he was driven to kill by the voice of a demon dog named Sam, which he said had been sent by his neighbor to control him. He described how the dog would command him to commit murder, and he often portrayed himself as a mere pawn in a larger, demonic scheme. This belief became a central part of Berkowitz's narrative, and it played a significant role in shaping the public's perception of him. Psychologists and criminologists have long debated whether Berkowitz's claims were genuine or if they were a defense mechanism designed to excuse his actions. Some have suggested that his belief in the demon dog was a symptom of paranoid schizophrenia, a mental illness characterized by delusions and hallucinations. Others argue that Berkowitz's behavior was more calculated than it appeared, and that he used mental illness as an excuse to avoid the consequences of his actions. Berkowitz was diagnosed with a range of psychological conditions, including paranoia and personality disorders, but whether these conditions were a direct cause of his murders remains unclear. While it is possible that his delusions influenced his behavior, it is also possible that Berkowitz's crimes were the result of a more complex interplay between his mental state and his personal choices. At the time of his arrest, Berkowitz was found to be mentally competent to stand trial, which suggests that his delusions may have been more exaggerated for dramatic effect rather than a true reflection of his reality. The question remains, to what extent was Berkowitz aware of the wrongfulness of his actions, and how much of his behavior was truly driven by mental illness? Berkowitz's narrative about being controlled by a demon dog raises important questions about his role in the crimes he committed. Was he truly a victim of external forces, or was he consciously manipulating the media and the public to avoid taking responsibility for his actions? Psychologists and criminologists have suggested that Berkowitz's claims of being controlled by a supernatural force may have been a form of cognitive distortion, in which a person distorts their perception of reality to avoid confronting uncomfortable truths. By attributing his actions to an external force, Berkowitz could absolve himself of responsibility and avoid confronting the full horror of what he had done. This theory is supported by the fact that Berkowitz later admitted that his initial claims about the demon dog were fabricated. In interviews, he stated that he had used the story of the dog to justify his actions and gain sympathy. Berkowitz's acknowledgement that he had been lying about the demon dog suggests that he was aware of the moral wrongness of his actions, even though he initially tried to hide behind his delusions. This aspect of Berkowitz's case speaks to the complexity of his psychology. While it is clear that he struggled with mental illness, it is also clear that he was capable of manipulating the narrative around his crimes in a way that allowed him to avoid full accountability. His ability to control the media's perception of him raises questions about his true motivations and whether he was simply a man seeking power and control through his violent acts. One of the most difficult questions raised by the Son of Sam case is the nature of evil itself. Was Berkowitz simply an evil man, or was he the product of a combination of factors: his childhood, his mental illness, his personal struggles that led him to commit murder? The case forces us to confront the question of whether evil is something inherent in certain individuals or whether it is shaped by external influences. Serial killers like Berkowitz often defy easy explanations. They are not simply born evil, nor are they merely victims of circumstance. Rather, their actions are the result of a complex interplay of psychological, social, and environmental factors. For Berkowitz, his early life, feelings of alienation, and struggles with mental illness all contributed to his violent behavior. But what made him different from others who experience similar challenges is the extreme nature of his actions, the brutal murders, and his attempts to manipulate the media. Psychologists have long debated whether certain individuals are predisposed to commit violent acts. Some argue that genetics play a role, while others point to the influence of childhood trauma and social factors. In Berkowitz's case, it is likely that a combination of these factors contributed to his decision to kill. Whether he was born evil, or whether his actions were the result of his upbringing and psychological struggles, is a question that may never be fully answered. In the years following his conviction, Berkowitz underwent a profound transformation. After his religious conversion in the 1980s, he began to express deep regret for his actions and claimed that he had found redemption through his faith. He later referred to himself as the Son of Hope, distancing himself from the persona of the Son of Sam and seeking forgiveness for his crimes. This shift in Berkowitz's behavior has led to ongoing debates about the possibility of redemption for individuals who commit horrific acts. Was Berkowitz truly remorseful, or was his conversion simply another form of manipulation? Can a person who has committed such heinous crimes ever truly change, or is the darkness inside them too deeply entrenched? While many people have accepted Berkowitz's expression of remorse, others remain skeptical. His past actions, they argue, cannot be erased by a sudden religious awakening. The question of whether Berkowitz's redemption is genuine remains an open debate, one that continues to shape public perceptions of his legacy. David Berkowitz's case is one of the most complex and debated in the history of criminal psychology. His story raises difficult questions about the nature of evil, the role of mental illness in violent crime, and the ability of individuals to change. While Berkowitz's remorse and religious conversion may signal a genuine desire for redemption, his past crimes and his manipulation of the media complicate the narrative of his transformation. David Berkowitz, the infamous Son of Sam, has been a figure of public fascination and psychological intrigue for decades. His case, which once gripped New York City with fear, has since evolved into one of the most widely discussed and analyzed criminal stories in history. But now, decades after his arrest and conviction, what does Berkowitz's legacy look like? In the context of modern society, true crime culture, and criminal justice, Berkowitz's crimes left an indelible mark not just on the victims' families, but also on the broader landscape of criminal justice and public perception. As New York City reeled from the shock of his killing spree, the case became an object of public fascination that continued to evolve long after his conviction. The Son of Sam case helped shape modern criminal investigations, influencing the use of psychological profiling and investigative techniques still in use today. It highlighted the importance of understanding the criminal mind, looking beyond the acts of violence to uncover the underlying psychology that drives such behavior. The role of media manipulation and the obsession with criminal cases was another byproduct of the Son of Sam killings. The case forced us to confront the darker side of the media and its role in creating a larger-than-life myth around infamous criminals. Even today, Berkowitz's case remains a benchmark for understanding the intersection of crime, psychology, and media. It is referenced in criminology and psychology textbooks and continues to be the subject of documentaries, podcasts, and books. His case is a reminder that criminal behavior is rarely simple and is often the result of a complex web of psychological, social, and personal factors. Berkowitz's media manipulation through his taunting letters and public statements was instrumental in transforming true crime from sensational tabloid fodder into a serious field of academic study. The sensationalized portrayal of the Son of Sam in the media helped create the template for how modern serial killers are portrayed, both in the media and in popular culture. Today, true crime documentaries, podcasts, and books continue to fuel public interest in the psychology of killers and their crimes. But with the rise of true crime media, we must ask, is there a danger in becoming obsessed with criminals and their psychology? While it's essential to understand the motivations behind violent crime, true crime content can sometimes veer into exploitation, treating murderers as celebrities and allowing them to dominate the narrative at the expense of victims and their families. In Berkowitz's case, the media's obsession with his story created a platform for him to continuously manipulate the public's perception of his actions. The story of his transformation from killer to religious man has sparked debates about the possibility of redemption for someone who has committed such horrific acts, but it also raises ethical questions about the media's role in amplifying his narrative and allowing him to reshape his public image. True crime's growing popularity has led to an increasing demand for answers about the motivations of killers. Yet, while the genre seeks to provide insight into the criminal mind, it also must grapple with the potential for glorification. Berkowitz's case remains a stark example of this tension between the desire to understand the mind of a killer and the danger of turning criminals into cultural icons. As Berkowitz spent more years in prison, his public statements about remorse and his transformation into a religious figure have stirred mixed reactions. His attempts to distance himself from the Son of Sam persona and adopt a new identity as a man of faith have led many to question the nature of redemption. Can someone who has committed such heinous acts ever truly be forgiven? Is it possible for a person to change after committing brutal crimes, or is their past irrevocably tied to their future? Berkowitz's case brings up the complicated issue of personal responsibility and accountability. While he has expressed remorse for his actions, his claims of being influenced by external forces such as the demon dog suggest that, at least initially, he was reluctant to take full responsibility for the brutality of his crimes. His religious conversion, however, presents a more complicated picture. Is he genuinely remorseful, or is he using religion to rewrite his narrative and gain public sympathy? The question of redemption is at the heart of Berkowitz's legacy. Some see his transformation as a genuine sign of change, while others view it as an opportunistic attempt to soften his image. Ultimately, Berkowitz's case forces us to confront the complexities of human behavior, the interplay between personal choice, mental illness, and the possibility of moral change. Berkowitz's case is also a cautionary tale about how society reacts to extreme violence. The media's sensational treatment of his crimes, along with his own manipulation of the press, demonstrates the power of narrative in shaping public opinion. The case is a reflection of how easily the public can become fascinated with the psychology of killers, often at the expense of the victims and their families. It is important to remember that the Son of Sam killings were not just a story about a killer, they were about the victims, their lives, and the trauma their families continue to endure. Moreover, Berkowitz's case underscores the need for better mental health care and support. While his psychological issues were clearly a contributing factor to his actions, they were never fully addressed until after his conviction. In the years since, his case has highlighted the importance of providing adequate mental health care for those who may be at risk of committing violent acts. His story also raises the question of how much responsibility society bears for failing to address the warning signs of violent behavior before it escalates. As we close the book on the story of David Berkowitz, we are left with lingering questions that may never have clear answers. What drove him to commit such horrific acts? Was he truly under the influence of a supernatural force? Or was he simply a man making calculated choices? Can someone who has caused so much pain and suffering ever truly find redemption? These are questions that will continue to haunt both criminologists and the public at large. Berkowitz's case will likely continue to serve as a touchstone in the study of serial killers, the psychology of violence, and the role of the media in shaping the narratives of criminal figures. His story is not just a cautionary tale about the dangers of serial murder, it is a reflection of society's own fears, fascinations, and complex relationships with crime and punishment. David Berkowitz's legacy is far from simple. It is one that forces us to confront difficult questions about justice, redemption, and the capacity for change. His case is a reminder that even the most monstrous of figures are human, and that their stories are never just about the crimes they commit, but about the societal forces that shape their actions. David Berkowitz, the son of Sam, will always be remembered as one of the most notorious serial killers in American history, but his story is more than just a tale of crime. It is a story of psychological complexity, media manipulation, and societal fascination. As we move forward, the lessons of Berkowitz's case remain as relevant as ever, shaping the way we understand crime, punishment, and the possibility of redemption. With that, we conclude our deep dive into the Son of Sam case. While the questions surrounding Berkowitz's motivations and legacy may never be fully answered, his story continues to haunt our collective consciousness, serving as a powerful reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the most unexpected places. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and drop comment below.